Hey everyone, I'm Mike Henry, and this is my Procreate 5 demo for the piece I call Purty Lady, because we are masters at naming things. Anyways, this is a piece, it was supposed to be just kind of like a light, easy breezy piece in between a bunch of other stuff. I was going through old photos on my phone and I found like some random sketches that I had done from the Pink Hair Girls Kickstarter, and I liked one of them, so I decided to kind of like rework it. But before we actually get into the painting, we need to talk about the brush that I use in this. So I use the noise brush, which you can find right here if you go down to the touch-ups section in Procreate. You'll find it right there kind of in the middle. Here I have it selected. And I just wanted to kind of show how this thing works because it will inform your understanding of the rest of the illustration. You can see here I'm just kind of stroking it across the page. Then I go over it one more time just to get it kind of like extra dark so you can really see what's going on here. So what this does is it essentially paints a singular color noise across everything. With their inclusion now of the noise filter brushing stuff, maybe you don't need to use this type of a brush, but I just kind of, you know me, I always like to kind of keep things simple and controllable. So this is what I used for this piece. I wanted something that had like a texture to it of this specific kind of vibe, and I was kind of going through the brushes that were already in Procreate, and that really seemed like the one to go with, more so than some of the others. So here you can see this is kind of the methodology that you'll see me use throughout this piece, except I won't be creating a selection all of the time exactly like I've done here. Instead, I'll be using my select paint, select clear method to trap the space and really control where this brush goes, because in order to get the right noise frequency, I actually have to keep the brush pretty large. That's kind of one of the struggles that I had with this brush. I probably could have adjusted some things, but I was just kind of going. Also here you see me using the noise brush as an eraser. That's also a technique I'll use throughout this. You'll notice that, of course, it doesn't erase away in kind of it erases away as noise. So you have to kind of take that into account while you're using it. The first thing you'll see here is the sketch. You can see right there, that's a photo of the sketch cards from when I did my Pink Hair Girls Kickstarter years now ago. And I just really like that shape. Since I didn't have it in like a great perspective, I just kind of kept it up in the background and redrew it. I liked kind of how she had almost this thumb-shaped head. I just thought it was kind of cool and appealing, even though maybe a head shaped like a thumb isn't in theory appealing. I just kind of thought that she had really nice shape, so I wanted to explore that and kind of keep reinforcing these big, nice, sort of soft shapes with this thing. So that was the entire spirit behind this. And then as I was doing the flats is actually when I was thinking about potentially using the noise brush. I liked the kind of retro vibe that she had, and I thought that that might be a fun element for the illustration. So the flatting process right now is being done with the turpentine brush, and it's just nothing particularly special about the way that this is all being laid in. Just choosing some colors that I think are going to work and laying the flats in like I normally would. Really the meat of trying to like pull this piece off is in wrestling with the noise brush. I also wanted to give her these pink irises just to make it colorful and fun. There's no greater meaning behind that other than just like, hey, pink's kind of fun. And at one point I kind of thought I might actually change that, and I didn't. I just kind of kept them pink the whole time, which makes for a weird hashtag, because at one point when I was posting this on Instagram, I was going to hashtag it pink eye or pink eyes, which obviously isn't something that you want people to be tapping on. Maybe there's people out there sharing pink eye pictures, and so I instead changed it to like pink irises or something like that when I posted it. You can see there's kind of a weird layer thing happening here. We've got the front of her hair that sits over her forehead and the side of her head on a layer. We've got that big blob in the front on a layer, and then we've got the back of her hair on a layer. The back of her hair and that blob actually technically connect, but not in the flats, so it was just something I had to take into account. While trying to figure out how to separate this, it was actually weird. It's not a complex piece at all, but when I was solving that part, I was like, oh, this is going to be a little more complicated than it probably should be, but whatever. It worked. It wasn't that big of a deal. Let's go ahead and speed up the rest of the flatting process. We'll just zoom through it right here. Not a lot to talk about. And we're going to add some color variation in the skin. Lips are pretty obvious. Also some blush under the nose, cheeks, ears. We'll just put these in as red and lower the opacity and adjust them to where we kind of want them to be. throw some glints in. Sometimes I like getting that in at this stage because it kind of establishes my value range, not in like a real extreme, like, oh, this is going to inform lots of things kind of way, but just more of like a, hey, cool, that's our brightest point, let's keep that in mind. So now we're starting to use the noise brush. It's pretty fast because I wasn't going for anything too kind of like super, I don't know, I wasn't trying to really get the lighting to be crazy realistic. I was going for more of this like implied lighting. It's almost like if you were to color this with gradients, but instead of gradients we're using this noise brush. And you're going to see that I'm doing the same thing that I normally do, where I'm kind of doing like an AO pass, and I'm going to go back in and do a hard shadow pass as well, and we'll just have those as multiplied layers that are on top. For those of you who don't know this method, you can kind of see the layer flipping back to like a light brown and then back again. So the light brown is the color that I'm actually using for shadow, but it's set to multiply. Multiply darkens whatever's underneath it. The closer your color is to black, the closer it is to white, the more transparent it is. And so if you do a color as opposed to a white or a black, it inherits some of that color as well. So by using a essentially reactive blend mode, you can make your lighting and everything and your shadows be what you want them to be, and then you can even tweak your flats underneath later if you want to. And in most cases, not always, but in most cases your lighting will still work out for you. So at any point I could take this person here and I could color shift her flats and make her any assortment of colors, and I wouldn't have to retouch any of my lighting. The only part that I have to readdress would be if I went in and did bounce light, because my bounce lighting, if it's from surface to surface, is all done by color picking. So if I change that, I would have to adjust it. Now, there are some ways that I can do that in something like Photoshop, where I can have like way more layers and I can control that whole thing a lot better, but not in Procreate. So once we get to that bounce layer pass, our colors are kind of locked in. Otherwise, we have to go back in and do a lot of work. Here we've thrown an additional noise layer on top. That's just by filling the sheet white, filling the canvas white on top on a new layer, applying the noise filter, and then actually sizing that layer up or down to get the noise to be the frequency or the blobbiness that I kind of want it to be. Here we're throwing in some additional shadowing, playing also with some colors. You can see me playing with saturation, and now we're doing a nice crisp rim light. Since it has this retro vibe, and since she kind of looks like she could be at like a photo shoot or something, I just thought let's go straight, you know, like curated lighting, like actually decided upon lighting. So there's going to be this hard rim light on the core shadow side, and then yeah, here go in some highlights. The highlights were done with a blue. And like a lot of the stuff that I do, this is not done with like an overlay. You could use some form of a reactive lighting layer in your blend modes, like I'm doing here with the shadows, but sometimes that can look a little too hot. So with the lighting, I actually try to just lower the opacity on it. You saw me there playing with some textures on the hair. I decided to leave the hair more like these solid masses. I'm going through now and putting in some of the bounce light, and then we're going to also put just a little of extra damage on the overall image, just to give it a little bit more texture to the whole thing. And in a second here, this is going to come in for the finish line, and there we go. That is the finished piece. Pretty quick one. Really the challenge here was learning how to use that noise brush in an effective way. I really like the way that it ultimately came out, but I probably won't be doing it again anytime soon, because I think it's something that's nice to reserve for pieces that feel like they would benefit from a brush like that. So, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider hitting like, hit subscribe, share it with your friends, and I'll see you on the next one. And if you're looking for me on the internet, these are the places where you can find me.